What are some declassified government documents that are surprisingly terrifying? When the Space Shuttle Challenger was destroyed, it was reported that all 7 astronauts were killed instantly. It was revealed decades later that some, if not all of the astronauts survived the initial explosion, as the cockpit cabin had enough protection to not be breached. For 2 minutes and 45 seconds, they were awake and aware, as they plummeted toward the Atlantic Ocean. Understandably, NASA knew that the news of their terrifying death would have crippled the space program even more than it already was. There are over 50 mishaps with nuclear weapons by the US Air Force in the 1950s alone. Removed. Let's see who's gonna be the soon-to-be disappeared Redditor who names a currently classified top-secret program. Deleted. I don't think it's classified, but Project Thor, using a satellite bomber to bomb a city. Imagine, a missile or a bomb coming from space, and before you know it, your city is destroyed by a falling missile/bomb. It was called Rods from God. Basically it would have used kinetic energy, no explosives. It would have used a series of 2,000-pound tungsten rods to destroy and vaporize without the radiation of a nuclear bomb. It was only avoided because we signed treaties with the Russians not to weaponize space. Boeing X-37B unmanned space shuttle. It just spent 720 days in space doing God knows what, testing stuff, and maybe taking pictures like the one Trump tweeted of the Iranian space launch site. Apparently the USAF has disclosed that it's testing a heat pipe assembly, but I'm sure there's other stuff we're not allowed to know about. CIA invested millions in trying to make cat spies. $20 million to be precise. In East Germany, a committed freedom fighter and her husband had dealt with having her home raided while she was away, being arrested on the way to protests and all sorts of state-sponsored harassment. After the wall fell, she was able to read the documents the Stasi had kept on her and found out her own husband was an undercover agent and had written many reports on her activities with a bloodless banality. Operation Northwoods, a plan for a false flag operation that came from the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Department of Defense in 1962 and given to JFK, who turned it down. The plan called for the CIA to commit terrorist actions against US civilians across the United States and frame Cuba, allowing us the right to invade and depose Castro and the communist government there. It was declassified and can be found online at the JFK Library. Terrifying that no one knows or seems to care that this was suggested by our government to the president. Project Sunshine, where the US government bought remains of dead infants to test for radiation. When they took limbs from them, the parents were never told. One mother wasn't allowed to dress her daughter for her funeral, because doctors had removed her legs, and didn't want her to find out. Is anyone else ridiculously disturbed that they named that Project Sunshine? What the fuck? I remember something about a heart attack gun I read some time ago. Basically a poison gun that once shot is untraceable in the victim's body and leaves no mark on their body. 3. If it sounds really vague, https://youtube.b/4m6 Just watched it a few hours ago. Can't remember the source, but apparently there is a legit order signed by Hitler to his nuclear researchers saying if they have a viable nuclear explosive, start loading into V2s immediately. However, Germans didn't come that close to making a nuclear bomb. They didn't consider it a priority because they calculated that it wouldn't be a decisive weapon to win the war, especially against US, who would already have nuclear bombs in their arsenal. Estimates put the probable year for a German nuke, if the efforts continued, around 1947. Read the book, 1 Second After. It's about what happens after an EMP attack on the US. It's based on actual government studies and estimates. It is terrifying. Not declassified but leaked. Operation Yellowhammer, the government tried to say it was old but it had an August date on it. Mkultra. Partially illegal, forced mind control experiments utilizing psychoactive drugs, conducted by the CIA in 1950s/60s. More specifically, The death of Frank Olson. Olson was going to expose Project Mkultra. Olson was a CIA employee who was dosed with LSD by his supervisor and then committed suicide 9 days later by jumping out of his hotel window. After an autopsy, there was some evidence found that he was unconscious when he plunged out of the window. https://nm wikipedia.org/wiki/Frank_Olson. One US bomber accidentally dropped a nuclear bomb a short distance from a major US city, can't remember which, but luckily it didn't detonate. Jeffrey Dahmer's full confession, a couple of 100 pages of pure madness. Necrophilia, dismemberment, skinning, lobotomy, body part preservation, cannibalism. Dahmer became pretty close to his interrogating detectives, Dennis Murphy and Patrick Kennedy, and provided a lot of detail to them. A lot of it in a pretty candid, offhand manner. Dahmer should have been prosecuted for what he did in the army. Source. For Capshaw it began the day he and Dahmer, an army medic, were put into a room together. The assaults began at once and, eventually, he leapt from the third-floor window to escape. I had probably been raped 8 to 10 times, I don't know. He was tying me to the bunk with motor pool rope. He took all my clothing from me. He would either beat me before he raped me or he would beat me after. Not declassified documents, but the discovery of the Tuskegee syphilis study on unwitting black American males was pretty fucking horrific. https://www.cdc.gov/Tuskegee/timeline. HTM. Greater than the study was conducted without the benefit of patients' informed consent. Surprised no one has mentioned the Panama Papers. They've been out for a while, but there's been little coverage of them. TLDR of them, lots of money laundering that was tracked pointed to major governments and global businesses. And #X200B, Amazon Prime has a series called The Giant Beast that is the global economy. They talk about the Panama Papers in a couple episodes. Also Paradise Papers, the elite of this world money laundering and essentially hoarding wealth. I wonder why the media coverage was super slim. With all of these terrible atrocities committed by governments in the past, that have links and proof, it leads me to one question. What the hell are they doing to US right now? Two things come to mind. I think they're called the Pentagon Papers. They detail how America went into Vietnam with no intention of winning, rather to control China in that part of the world. Not creepy but potentially creepy is the JFK assassination papers that get released in October. I'm looking forward to that day. Edit, spelling. After the My Lai massacre, killing of around 400 to 500 innocent civilians in Vietnam after an army troop killed an entire village, the U.S. government established a group to investigate other war crimes like this occurring in Vietnam, the Vietnam War Crimes Working Group. They found 28 massacres of equal or greater magnitude than My Lai that the public was unaware of, so literally thousands of innocent people killed by US soldiers. The information has since been reclassified, but there were several journal articles on it when it was first released. I took a military ethics class hosted by a professor who spent many years in Vietnam as a Marine captain. He personally experienced a colonel who operated with a doctrine called count the meat. Basically, the success of an operation was dependent upon how many bodies it made. The presumption was that they were all enemies. Not really terrifying but fucked up. Operation Paperclip, where after World War II the US government took Nazi scientists and shipped them to America to do science. Some of them came straight from Nuremberg cells, the most noteworthy being Wernher von Braun. Von Braun built the V-2 rockets with Jewish slave labor. Every day they would execute the 5 slowest workers in front of the other workers to incentive them to work harder. Once he came to America, we shipped him to Huntsville, Alabama, where he built the Saturn V, the rocket used in the Apollo program, and got us to the moon. I always thought it was insane that Wernher von Braun was born within a decade of the Wright brothers' first flight, then sent men to the moon on a rocket in his 50s. Their reasoning for Vietnam. Such a devastating waste of lives on both sides. See the Vietnam War documentary by Ken Burns. The Mkultra mind control experiments. The CIA basically tested various means of mind/suggestibility control through many front organizations. The main intent was to improve interrogation methods, but later expanded into other avenues of research such as making sleeper agents. Tests were performed both with and without knowledge or permission on large numbers or American and Canadian citizens. While some files have been declassified or leaked, the bulk of the files have either been destroyed or remain classified. As a result, larger statistics on the project such as death tolls, numbers of subjects and personnel involved and research gained can only be estimated as of today. Operation Unthinkable. While never fully developed, it was a hypothetical UK war plan that would have started World War III before World War II was even over. It called for Allied troops to attack the Soviet Red Army at Berlin and push them out of Europe entirely. Not having the manpower to fight them alone, the plan not only relied heavily on American forces, but also called for the rearmament of German soldiers who would then fight alongside the Allies. The plan didn't get much traction because public support by that point would be being close to zero, and the Americans weren't interested since they still had Japan to deal with, and a war against the Soviets would likely lead to a Soviet-Japanese alliance, among other obvious issues with the plan. Not really terrifying, I suppose, but it would have fundamentally reshaped the world that we live in today had it gone ahead. That they actually did follow John Lennon around, and Nixon had a very strange obsession. The documents are quite surreal to read. Operation Mockingbird, Operation Northwoods, Operation Paperclip, the fact that we pardoned Unit 731. The list goes on and on. Unit 731 makes Mengele look like a pediatrician with good bedside manner. Right now there's a radioactive pile of trash in St. Louis and the surrounding rivers, which got infected with all the rain washing away the radioactive trash into the rivers, gave cancer to many people since the 1950s. Operation Acoustic Kitty was pretty terrifying. Not really declassified, but leaked. Room 641A. It was a room in an AT&T exchange with a whole bunch of monitoring equipment for the US government. Completely legal under the Patriot Act. We are planning to cut all homeless people in half in 2025. / the UK government. That's the best example of bad wording I have ever seen. Project Pluto. If we ever used it, it would pretty much end life as we know it. It would have been capable of irradiating large areas of the globe within hours. Yay humanity, we're a fucking special sort, aren't we? It's not a declassified document, but a friend of mine that served in Desert Storm told me some things. Every morning during muster their group was given a small pill to take, supposedly to protect them from the toxins the Iranians were releasing into the air. My friend thought it was odd and he never swallowed his pill, just as some other members of their group didn't. Years go by and all of the people that he still talks to that took the pill have cancer of various types as well as a plethora of other medical issues. The ones that did not take the pill seemingly have nothing wrong with them other than normal effects of being middle-aged. Some crazy stuff, and often the military enlisted become guinea pigs for the government without their knowledge or consent. I don't remember the exact name, but there was a US government project to create individual profiles of all people detailing all aspects of their lives, but it was scrapped in 2006, the year Facebook opened to the public. USA/CIA overthrew the democratically elected leaders to install puppet dictators all over the world. Wonder why Central America, South America, Africa and the Middle East are doing poorly? We destroyed their government and put crazy people in charge. Most of these governments never recovered.